Okay, Article 15 starts like this. Freedom and secrecy of correspondence and any other type of communication are inviolable. So that's the beginning. Okay, so we've seen that personal freedom is inviolable and freedom of residence is inviolable. Now we're extending it also to our communications, our links with others. We're saying that is inviolable. We've got the freedom, firstly the freedom of expression, which we have in Article 21, but here also the secrecy, the freedom to have a confidential conversation to somebody, a private conversation to somebody. So we're extending it further, and that covers the sender and the receiver. Now this communication could be in letter, it could be in email. We're changing with our technologies, we're changing how we communicate, but it covers all the forms of communication possible. And if we want our communication secret and private, then we've got that right. It's inviolable, which means it's the roots of it can be found in the rights of man in Article 2. It's recognised and guaranteed as a right of man, as the fundamental principles say. So this is just being more concrete. This is making that principle more concrete and applying it to a real situations. Now, why would anyone want to listen to our conversation, our private conversations? It could be other citizens, for example, your boss, maybe he's trying to check if you're looking for another job, or maybe your wife is trying to check if you're seeing other women. But I think they had in mind the authority, because you've got to remember, in these times, it was the fascist authority were the ones that wanted to control everything and interfere with how people thought even or communicated, control exactly their behaviour and check that they're behaving to the way that they deem is legitimate. Now, a government now, why would it want to listen into our communications? Well, there's always resistance to government. We've got the no-TAV, for example, and we can't listen, the authority cannot listen into the no-TAV protesters' private conversations to check, where they're meeting, what their plans are, what their tactics are, or maybe even opposition parties to check how their strategies are to resist the government, or maybe even get propaganda against those resistors or opposition. A bit like in America with Hillary Clinton and Trump, when they managed to get her emails, they used them against her. This is not allowed. It's an absolute invasion of our human rights, according to this. So this really wants to create a civil society that feels authority is kept out of their civil relationships. Remember this part of the part 1, Title 1 is about civil relationships, and we want to keep the authorities out of those civil relationships, and we can actually communicate freely and uninhibitedly if I think nobody's listening, if I think somebody's listening, the authorities or even anyone, obviously I will be very careful with what I say and not so free and spontaneous with whom I'm talking. And then it continues. It says, their limitations can happen only for acts motivated by the judicial authority with the guarantee established by the law. So the authorities can, listen to our communications, check our communications, if there are good reasons to believe we're breaking the law, maybe to gather evidence, to get evidence to use against us. This is legitimate because in that case, our human rights should not protect us. If we're breaking the law, we're putting other people at risk, we're putting society in danger in some ways, maybe we're terrorists or something. So they've got reasons. So if the judicial authority says, yes, it can happen, then the police or whoever will be able to check our communications, but it needs to be something that is against the law.